Hello, my name is Christopher Runciman, and this is One Page Story Extravaganza. And with me tonight is Lucy. Lucy, would you like to say hi? Say hi, everybody. Hi, I'm Lucy. I like going for walks on beaches and chase doodles. Okay, that was okay. Good girl. All right, Corbin is sleeping. So, often people ask me, they say, Chris, it's 2 times 2. And they also ask me, what? When I'm faced with questions like that, I often ask myself, what are you talking about? Anyways, so I thought tonight on my Wednesday night stream, what I would do is, well, first off, I'm going to show you what we did today. And then I'm going to, I think we're going to draw. Live. Hiya, Linda. Hiya, Jim. Okay, so first off, let me show you what happened with our page from yesterday. So, magic. So this is the page that we did in white pen and white pencil and white paint and and white ink. So and this is what the outcome of it was: the story of the aquatic ape. Noble quest. Anyhow, so this was a fun page. Drawing in reverse on black is a good way to test yourself too, to see what your grasp is on shape and form, I find, anyways. And so that's what we did there. And let me bump that out of there. Okay. So I've got, first I'll show the overhead, and give me a second. I'm going to switch the cameras, and then we'll put down some. Oh, thanks very much, Linda. That's very nice. Yeah. I'm glad you like it. So there's the finished page. This is the original art for it. Really no change other than a dividing gutter between panels. That's the only thing I did any differently. I scanned it and put divider panels in. So woohoo! But yeah. So what we're going to do tonight is I'm just going to draw. And I got this idea that I want to try something. I want to try something out tonight, and that is we're just going to pick up a Tombow water-based N15 double point pen. So this is your brush point, and this is your marker tip point. So these are not expensive tools. I've also got a couple things on a standby. I got the Tombow Denisuke pen, which I'm a big fan of, and I've got my Pilot Parallel pen, which is for filling in blacks. So what I thought I would do is just start drawing, and nothing's laid out. There's no pencils anywhere. This is the previous page we just did. I got an extra sheet below this one, just because, and I just thought we'd start drawing and seeing what we could make of our image. Let me see if this improves anything at all. Take the glare down a little bit. So, all right. So we've got this surface. There's a bunch of things that I think we can try out here, but I just want to draw people. I just want to draw some kind of larger scale dynamic scene. And with, people and moving around in different ways. I want to have people standing, in like a sort of solemn line, and then I want to have people moving forward. But first off, we're going to start over here on this side, and we're just going to move across. And then what I thought is, right off the hop, you'll have to bear with me because I don't necessarily use this tool, and I want to get better with it because I've been asked to do some larger public drawing and projects ahead in the future in this year, so I better practice a little bit, get myself prepped. So I'm just following shapes. I've got some little tiny images off the side, as I usually do, where the thumbnails make me have to think more about what it is that I'm doing rather than just firing across lines and images, and that I'm just copying every little detail that I can see. By using thumbnails, it makes me think a lot more, and I got to tell you, I like that, because when we're thinking more, it invests us a little bit into the projects that we're doing. So, so I'm drawing some people in the foreground here. I have a lady holding a baby. And, and then I'm going to have more and more the complexity in the scene as it moves back. So, but in our foreground, I just want to get these little tidbits of information down in here, just so that we have some scale started. Like it's the reason that I'm coming from this side to that side is, of course, smudging. I don't want to have to contend with that on any level. So I'm just going to really just draw from one side to the next. I fed the cats before I started. That's always a good thing. Keep them out of my hair. What little I have left. Ba-dum. So I'm putting in all of these various elements overlapping each other, just to sort of draw it up. I'm going to add in some grays as I go, I think, as well. I need to really understand how these markers work together. This is a water-based pen, so it's not like I can get too creative with adding gray values and things like that, because it'll just bleed out, right? So let's just take it as we get it. Okay, now I've got a little bit of movement up here now. We're just moving across into the next image, the next image, the next image, and carrying on and so forth. But let's start putting some people in here. So lighter application of the brush is giving me this texture to the stroke side. That's good. I'm going to figure this out as I go along about how to get different textures, different shapes, different applications of line. Wednesday is amounted to become just me doing whatever it is I feel like doing. And that's fine. Usually what happens in the evening is that, I'm really blessed that, Lori and I will sit down and watch some television together. And while we're doing that, I'll be doodling. And that's where you see things like the marker drawn pages that I do, and all of the marker illustrations within, my sketchbooks. So this is similar to that, it's just trying to apply it as a static story image as I go. So there is a little bit of difference, but not an awful lot from from how I go about my evening. It's just, you'll see me draw pages, you'll see me work panel to panel, but this is more like how I sketch. So I've been seeing some really interesting stuff from people. I've been trying to look up what folks are doing and catch up with some people, and see what people have been producing. And there's some exciting times right now because looking forward to some projects that are being put out by people, and I'm really trying to figure out different ways that I can help people in their process and help people in their creative journey. In that creative journey, of course, their self-discovery. Life is interesting, and it's important that in a world where there's really little concern to, wellness, individual wellness and care of themselves. What can we do to help each other figure out, in a clear way, self-expression? I'm really trying to think, really thinking long and hard about this. This whole idea, and I don't say this to just be mean to people, but this whole idea about, the monetization of everything that we live, with today is so unfair. And the reason that it's so unfair is that even those that have some degree of affordance of it, they're getting taken to the cleaners too, because what does some of this stuff amount to? Nothing. Go to college and get this degree, and for what? It's not going to yield any result for you. So, there's a funny thing that happens in schools where I remember at one point there was just everybody in their armpit was taking nursing courses in school because there was lots of positions for nursing. And then, when you steer everybody towards the same objective goal, you're going to bottom it out. Here's all these opportunities, but then there's so many people that are pushing others into those opportunities, they will dry up. And in a system where it really doesn't support the individuals that are in those positions in the first place, that's not fair. So I'm trying to think of what I can do to help pass on whatever meager art things that I've picked up over time to people and save them from silly time in colleges and universities. And the only real benefit you're getting out of those things in studying art is the ink club. That's it. Because more than that, it doesn't. You can pick that stuff up at the library, Now, there's going to be people that really wholly disagree with me, and that's fine. If you're not in a position to go to school, spend that time, spend that money, what your soul desperately needs for you to find a voice to be heard. Let's do it. Let's do it together, folks. Let's hold hands and, get at it. Okay, so we've got the little one here. And now we're drawing in their mom. So, keep it moving forward here. operating without a net tonight because just working with this pen makes me really have to think about every mark that I put down, which, is the same case with any other mark making tool. But when you're trying something that I don't normally draw with this big, because it's a little ungainly, right? But I prefer the smaller Tombow, and it has a much tighter control. But in this instance, perhaps that tighter control works against me. But we're going with this larger brush. So here's the mom coming in now. You can see mom in the foreground and or I'm sorry, baby in the foreground and mom in behind. Little pieces of information that I'm trying to make sure I get in the belt buckle and things like that. We're going to half cover this person up with another piece of information in the foreground. And we're just moving across. So let's see. So I'm getting back in my stride again. I'm getting back to, the pattern or the habit is back of the regular posting and once you can get something established habitually, you're much better off to stick to it. And I think that that's where we're at right now. Which is good. It's a good feeling. It sort of tells me that we're on the right path. Hopefully this is making sense to people, the image. There's I got to find out some different methods about tight lines and things like that, and I might end up using a second Tombow to do it. But let's put mom's thumb here, wiping some of the schmutz from her face. Yeah. So this is coming together okay. I'm kind of pleased with this. Just keeping at it, So let's put the small pinky here. And then the other fingers as we move along. Okay. So yeah, this is a fun challenge. I don't know if anybody else has ever set themselves challenges like this, but the next thing I'm going to do is scale up. I'm going to work larger and bring the images up larger and larger as I go, but let's not get over and let's not get ahead of ourselves here. Let's finish this one first. Runciman, Christopher Runciman. It says it on my hand. On the palm of my hand, it says, in case, lost or abandoned, take this unit back to the local dry cleaners and clean it up. Makes no sense. Little hair bun. Hopefully that makes some sense. So here's the another part for face here covered up. And we'll put next. It's a backpack that I'm drawing now in the foreground. This is what I'm talking about when I say maybe I should be figuring out how to do separation of values like I normally do. When I'm working with the smaller drawings, the tighter drawings, I usually have regular size line and then a thick embossing line, which separates A from B. But because this is a sort of ungainly thing, I haven't quite figured that out. So there really is a uniformity of the line. I improve upon that. So, and maybe the answer to that is larger, But this is me trying something new. So you get to watch me stumble and fall. I've just used these pens, these markers for coloring. And so a couple of black ones that I've got with little chromatic sets that I picked up, I've really done nothing with. I used them as fill blacks at one point. And, well, I might pull this drawing down further, but for now, here we go. So, okay, so we've got our other, let's put line across here, and then we'll do some more zipped up area. And then we'll put this over the back of the next person. So I'm thinking about, as I'm drawing this, about dark areas like shadowed areas and things like that. And should I, delineate those? It's tricky. It's a tricky decision to make. But for the time being, I'm just going to keep plodding ahead. So here's the next person coming in. That's their backpack straps. Get those in. We'll continue there in a second. Let's not get too far ahead. So we'll put some people in behind too. And then I'm going to draw, like I said earlier, this large group in behind. That's an intention. But let's look at some of this idea right here. I'm trying to think about where I can go with things. Well, let's put another person here. This is from, so I've got all these thumbnails and I'm just taking from them as I can and then making up the difference, right? And this is pretty good. This doesn't smudge as I'm working across, and I don't seem to pick up too much of it on my wrist, so that's kind of nice. But I'm also not, like I said, working left to right. I'm not dragging over it too much, but we're going to do it for a few minutes just because I need to work up. I ideally should have done this. Well, you live and you learn, huh? Hi, Lucy. Lucy is back. Yes, I see you. Do you want to say hi? Hi, everybody. I'm Lucy. How exciting was that, huh? Isn't that exciting? Okay. Nope, don't bite the pen I'm using. Okay. Come on, go. She thinks a good way to get attention is by headbutting the thing that I'm using. Oh, Linda says hi, Lucy. Go see what Corbin's doing. See your tail waving? You can't see it. Her tail is just doing this right here in front of my face. Hello. So, all right. So, come on, get down. Don't be a pain. She's bored. She gets bored. She's a kitten. All right. So, I'll put this person facing in the background. And then on to the next part. Scratching my nose here isn't working. Lucy, stop that. Here's a fun game. I'm going to knock this off the table. That's the game that she's playing. All right, so there's our next person coming in now. Leave that. Leave it. Okay. So here's our next character, and we'll put their arm in here and their jacket moving down there. So this may impede, Lucy, leave that alone. This may impede me drawing above if I'm going to get all smudgy, but we're trying not to. Drawing and fighting with a kitten at the same time. I am just too boring for her. She prefers it when Mama's home because Mama's more interesting. Okay, so here's our next character, and we're going to continue moving across and then seeing what our composition is going to present us with next. Okay, so I've got this. Oops, I got a Lucy hair in here. And then here's the remainder of our backpack. And then the shoulder straps came up here. And then we're just going to get the arm moving across. And I don't want to get too far ahead. Largely because, again, I don't want to smudge everything, right? So, okay. So here's the next person coming in here. Oh, and it says you have a sweet little voice. Lucy, a troublemaker. I know that. Yeah. She was having a fun little game of trying to knock things off my desk. Just, because they're there and they look like they want to be knocked off. Okay, so we've got this person who's in front of that person. See, there is a little bit of smudging that goes on. Didn't realize that's disappointing. Okay, I'm going to put some more people in behind as well. But first, let's get this person finished being drawn in. And then we'll get working up here. Maybe I'll have to lay a piece of paper down. Maybe. We'll see. But at the very least, I'll get this to happen. Dark colored hair, different colors of hair on different folks. The reason I'm putting a dark colored hair in here is to separate this strap that's moving across that back. So, okay, so we'll put a little bit of bangs coming in here. What is it, Luce? Let me think about this next section. Before I get too far across, and we'll, let's put this person wearing a mask. How's that? We live in that world now. Scarf around the neck, and then here's the mask on the face. Put the string across there. Okay, so here's our next person coming in. And we'll do their hand in a second. Let's go up top. And we'll add in, let's put somebody here. And I'm going to try to be really simplified, tight with the lines. Okay, but let's put somebody here really upset, and then somebody consoling them. But the reason that I'm doing this with the different, scales of people as I move back is to give a much larger scope to the image. So put that back on them, and I'll put their legs in like so. So I do a comic jam every month. We've been doing it for years. The last month was the first time that I, or the person who I run it with, couldn't both be there. And, in all that time. So I'm looking forward to getting back. But when I'm at the jam, I tend to draw really simple. Oh, hiya. Hey, on this. Welcome aboard. I tend to draw really simple because we got a lot of people of all ages there. And I find that, it's more encouraging to our people coming out for it not to be this big, everybody's trying to outshine everybody else kind of a situation. And so with that, I really try to emulate the style of drawing that's on a page whenever I come to work on it. And what I mean by that is somebody draws the first panel, and then the next person draws the next panel on the same page and tries to continue the contextual narrative that was established by the first person. And so because of that, if I try to get really fancy with whatever it is that I'm drawing, and the next person that's to follow, that's all to come out to the event, is not entirely self-assured yet in their illustration, I don't want to make that person feel like they can't contribute. I don't want to make that person feel like, you shouldn't take part in this, because you're going to wreck it because it's fancy to whatever degree. And I have no control over whether or not that person's going to feel that way. If I'm just doing what I normally do and trying to draw with whatever measure of things that I figured out along the way, I try to simplify in order to encourage our new attendees and those attendees that, again, are much earlier in the journey than I am creatively, so that they can help to not only take part, but to develop themselves a little more and feel a little more comfortable. And which, kind of makes me feel like sometimes I really want to go for this one. And I tend to reserve myself. And the reason that I do that is so that, again, these new people can feel part of it all. Sorry, I see there's a question. Give me a second and I'll address that. Liz says, I watched Milan Art Institute a bit, and they differentiated between one's voice and one's style. What would you say is your voice and style? Good question. What do you think, Lucy? What's my voice? You have any idea? I think my voice is scraggly, nonsensical, old man. I know what you mean by voice. I'm just being silly. I had a really interesting thing sent to me recently. Somebody sent me a review, and they said this, and this sounds a little egocentric, but bear with me. There's a mix of humor, visual detail, and spontaneity that makes the work feel both playful and thoughtful. And each page stands on its own and reflects a strong creative voice throughout. I haven't really overly thought about that too much. I'm going to be frankly honest. I have not objectively aimed to, this is who I am and this is how I work. I'm mixed bag, trying everything, everything I have in my toolbox. And not so much focusing on one thing or another, but trying whatever different things I can get a hold of. And so what that does is it diversifies my approach to things. But stylistically, there's variation. But my voice is uniform throughout, because at the end of the day, because it's a merger of words and pictures. There's certain ways that I portray characters' faces. That's a consistency. And there's certain ways that I tell a story. That's a consistency. And so your creative voice, despite the diversity of whatever it is that I'm doing, and whatever it is the story that I'm telling, I don't know if she's appearing on camera yet, but Lucy is right here. And she's trying to bite at my hand and my pen. So I love you, honey, but you're going down. And that is the sound of Lucy complaining. So because of that, your style comes through, and so even though you're using different mediums, even you're using different surfaces and stylistic approaches creatively, that cohesion is going to come through because there are certain things that you do, like faces, or the way that you place marks, or the way that you place, your characters, the way that you place your scenes, the way that you move along a story. Those things start to become recognizably you. And after you do enough of them, that patterning really sells out the creative voice. It sort of sings out to it, and no matter what it is that you're working on. So I was asked recently how many one-page stories that I've done, and we actually, it was added up, and I'm over 1,300 now since 2023. So, yeah, whatever that means. So, somebody likes drawing them pictures, So the people here, much smaller than the people in our foreground. These two are in front of that guy, so there's a differentiation in scale here, right? And, we're going to continue moving along in our composition. I am going to have to, I'm trying to figure out how I can go about getting more things done over here without smudging everything across. First and foremost, I'm going to let things dry out. So, the marks that I've been making settle enough. And then I'm going to work over top. But I'm going to have people, so I'm going to have to start making my grip on the pen a little more tenuous as I hold the pen back a tad. So bear with me, folks. So let's do, so again, we have to scale down again, right? And that necessity of a finer control on the brush is going to be challenging because, like I said before, this is a little large and cumbersome. I'm curious as to anybody that might be engaged with the stream, whether they're watching it now or watching it later on. Do you feel like you're developing your voice, your style? I think that one produces the next. And, maybe you right out of the gate have a very specific stylistic approach to how you make marks. But if you're doing it like you're emulating somebody else, that's not your voice. Like that's not you might stylistically say, well, I'm doing it like, the Impressionists. Oh, okay, well, that's great. But, so who is it that you're gravitating towards? Which of the Impressionists, right? So, hey, Robert, how you doing? Welcome aboard, sir. Like, which of the Impressionists that do you think that maybe you're emulating in your identifiable connection to them? Your voice comes through more clearly with producing, right? You're producing X amount of things. It's going to be more identifiable that this is the kind of direction this person takes or not. It's not easy to recognize a person's voice from one thing. That's what I'm saying. Volume. Neil Adams says, style is what you do wrong. guy. Yeah, style is what you do wrong, says Neil. Very clearly defined style, Adams. Bill Sienkiewicz, he started drawing comics, and he was really just learning how to emulate Neil Adams. And he didn't know any different. He didn't go to school or anything for it. So, and he lived in I think he said it was the American Midwest he lived in. So he really liked Adams. And so when you see his early work, man, it looks like Neil Adams. But then he clearly started defining himself, using more of the things that are in his toolbox. And you can really see it. You can really tell. But, he did X amount of things along the way and started defining. And you can see how he started defining more interesting approaches from his own sensibilities. And as he did that more and more, their style came. So I've got, let me try this. Hold this here. Maybe that'll help. I've got people walking in the background now, and somebody's carrying somebody else. So, again, I'm looking at a bunch of these little thumbnails, and in these little thumbnails, I'm trying to, make up what I think is happening in said thumbnail. And that's how I'm figuring out different things to draw and whether or not. And the other part of it to do that is I'm filling in, what I myself, I'm trying to remember of how does this work and how does that work. And so. This is carrying on again. Okay, so we've got, I'm going to put a hand here. As this person's carrying the other person. Yeah, so I think repetition really does it. It sort of, you can tell from X amount of things that a person's done. Oh, that's, sometimes people can start to identify it as that's, how so-and-so works. That chaotic mess is a runciman. That's a typical chaotic runciman mess. So I've got a person carrying the other person walking forward. And then here's the person whose weight they're supporting. And then here's the person that's beside them. We'll fill them in a little bit. Using this ruler, I think, is definitely helping me out in my concern of smudgery. So here's the second person now. And I'm going to have them carrying a bunch of stuff. Cats are fighting. Well, not fighting, play fighting. But Corbin's a pretty good sport with the kitten that, he does engage with her. But you can always see when he burns out. It's like, all right, enough, Okay, so there's our next. So we got two people. Let's give this guy a head. That could help. This one could use a face. And they're coming up to these other two here in the foreground. So I'm really not being too overly concerned about possible mistakes I'm making, or there's no preset structure for how I'm doing this drawing. I'm just into the moment. So if I make mistakes along the way, I make mistakes along the way. And yeah, we'll get through it. We'll work things out. Okay, so now we'll put this person here. Let's have them look to the side. I don't know. So there we go. Whoops, Jen. So there's that next person. And yeah, I'm curious as to what what is my favorite Saul Buscema book? I can't think off the top of my head. Because honestly, I mix up the Buscemas. Why do you sit down at the art table? What drives you to do it? Inspiration, habit, curiosity? Yeah, I got problems. The biggest challenge that I had with having been laid up recently and I'm unable to get down to the studio is that I'm a person who feels compelled to draw all the time. It's one of the ways in which I understand. It helps me to understand this world. And so when I can't, that inability to do so is for me disruptive. And everybody has their motivators, and everybody has the wherefore and why and what they do. I think it's part and parcel of who I am. And the more connected to it that I am, the better I feel. So, which can sound a little self-absorbed, but, there's so many different things and different ways that I want to try different things, and I have stuff that I want to, approach and say and pass on to others that I just sit down. There's no thought behind it. There's no necessity of what am I going to do or how am I going to do it. It's just, let's go. There's so many things for us to try. It's another form of communication, right? I say that all the time. And in my case, this is one of the ways in which I communicate. So I'm curious about the same question for others. Hey, it's Mr. Paul Pate, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome aboard, sir. Enjoying the process. Woohoo! Yeah. So here's our next person, and I'm setting them in behind. And so we're going to scale them back just a little bit behind these three people that are in front of them, so that our next person is adding to this depth, this line that we're moving along. So just trying different stuff out. So there's our next person moving back. That is awesome. I learn here every day. Thanks. Oh, I'm glad you're engaging from it. How you doing, Malcolm? Welcome aboard. When did you first refer to yourself as an artist? I don't know. I just go. I don't ask too many questions. There we go. I don't say. There's a funny thing about when people say, what do you do? And I generally say, I write and I illustrate stories and books, and I've been referred to by others as, this is Christopher and this is who he is. And that's fine. That's all well and good. And I appreciate that estimation, but I myself don't really walk up and go, hi, I'm Chris. I'm an artist. I'm also an excellent dancer. I don't claim either of those things. So, yeah. So here we are so far in drawing with this Tombow N15 water-based double-sided marker. We've got our point tip for those joining late, and then we've got a marker tip, which I have yet to utilize. And we're just trying to draw a whole composition with this. But as far as it goes for creativity, that's my mother did something years ago that I had a show, and in my show, or at my show, the curator of the largest gallery showed up to check out what I was doing, which is, wow, okay, and my mother got to talking to him, and she said to him, I always knew that this is what Christopher was going to do because I had to change the wallpaper and recite his crib 3 times in 1 year. And I'm like, I can't, you don't, what? Don't tell people things like that. What are you doing, woman? Anyways, Paul says, I've been an artist my whole life, a devastatingly handsome artist. I concur. An artist is someone into art, i.e. a scientist is someone into science. Okay, well, there we go. Anybody that's into art, I don't know, standing in a painting, that they're an artist, I guess. What about musical artists? Anybody that plunks an elastic band with vigor could be a musician. I think there are people that they want more clear definition about the term artist for themselves. A lot of people use cartoonist nowadays for sequential storytelling, and yeah, I don't do that. Whatever, call yourself whatever you want, I say, but I don't understand that one personally. People try to explain it to me. Oh, it's because of this. I don't care. I know the kayfabe guys started using it. Newspaper periodical creators, Bill Watterson, Charles Schultz, those were cartoonists. And graphic artists, comic artists, those were something different. Comic artists, writers, whatever. But I don't feel a need to pigeonhole this is how you address something. Paul Pate says author, artist, illustrator, bon vivant. He didn't say that, but So I'm drawing, I've got this ruler laid over top for my hand to rest on so I don't smudge the ink, and it's working. So this is just letting me get over here and fill in these other areas that I really should have got into first. So we'll get ourselves caught up here. So this is people after something crazy has happened. Earthquake or the like. And I'm trying to cover up here. Cartoonist. Okay. Everybody knows. Everybody knows. Anyways, an artist makes art. A gum chewer chews gum. Yeah, that's why Well, that's the thing about creative exploration, right? You've got ideas and messages and ways of seeing the world that we try to incorporate in creative output. And there's a great deal of writers and musicians and artists and photographers that are trying to capture ideas. And, and then they tend to be broad conceptual ideas. The people that say this is the only way, generally, I find tend to, in time, be proven wrong. But, people use creativity to express how they see the world. And they use that creativity to try to understand their own existence, in said world, or, in opposition to the ideas that they're confronted by. And that's, it's a challenging thing to do in very specific ways. So they tend to be broad statements that are being made. I have problems with politics. I have problems with, behavior, like the way that individuals behave, and they might use examples of personages in those explorations of ideas. But time, the ideas that spread over time tend to be more universal. Like, there's a reason that despite Guernica not recognizably, we don't have horse-drawn chariots or horse-drawn carts in the middle, going through the middle of town, per se. And because we live in larger cities and larger collections of people for the most part. And so some of the things that are expressed in Guernica, like the horse is upset, and very much the time and place. But the ideas represented in the painting Guernica by Pablo Picasso are, those are universal ideas that are being expressed. Problems that consistently, present themselves to us generation after generation. We don't seem to be learning lessons about war and, harming our fellows. So that part of it carries over. Do you know that for Guernica, I've said this before and I'll say it again. I'm an artist because I'm sketchy. That's fantastic, cat. Something sketchy about that cat and beast. She's an artist. It's really good. So Guernica did sketches, scene by scene. He did a bunch of rectangular shapes on a page, and he plotted out the Guernica painting, all the facets that are within it in those 16 moments, and then used that to inform him, what the finalized composition was going to be, and help him to make those decisions by trying to interpret the moments and then create an image that encapsulates as many facets of those as he can. That is a cartoon. That is a sequential series of illustrations, folks. They were literally called cartoons back then for that series of sequential images. That might be why people are using a term so broadly today. We're either broad stroking classifications of things or really being specific about them. We're a weird bunch of monkeys. Okay, so here's our next person. And I've been working over to figure out how to get them in front of this next person's bag, and I think we got there. Am I missing anything? Oh, the man in the hat. Man in a yellow hat. Originally white. That was originally white. It was originally black and white. Illustrations. Anyways. Who cares? Nobody knows that, Chris, you nerd. All right, so here's our next person. And I'm going to throw some more blacks in the person's outfit here. There we go. So here's our next person. So let's see, where are we at? So hopefully they're receding clearly. How about comics? Explain that one. What do you want me to explain about comics? Comedians or sequential literature? Bang. Trying to think of where to go next here. I think I need to draw some of the environment in here at this point. So let's do that. Let's just start drawing some detritus and objects smashed up and scattered around. A lot of geometric shapes, folks. I think because of the fact that this is a water-based marker, I'm going to need to do, if I want to add some gray value to this, I think it's going to have to be digitally. Like in the case of the part that I'm drawing in here now, if I try to do blends in here, it's going to muddy, right? Because of the type of pen that I'm using. So note to self, better ink next time. So I'm going to put some details in a certain amount of area, but then I'm also going to need to add some, to get some more layering. I want to put some that are just more open-faced. Why does anybody here draw comics? If anybody here is a person that likes to draw and tell stories, you know, using a fusion of graphics and text. Because there's very different kinds of comics. There's every different genre under the sun, every different stylistic approach under the sun, storytelling. You know, whenever I see any of the books that have impact on me growing up, like Orwell's in 1984, or Vonnegut's Slaughterhouse-Five, or I've got the Communist Manifesto in sequential form, just really random. And Aldous Huxley's Brave New World in comic form. I try to, you know, and then there's really other interesting things that have been happening, like Pride and Prejudice and zombies. You know, what a great, you know, and then apparently they've gone on and done more classic things in a zombie context. I love stuff like that. I love where you can take an existing thing and add a different sensibility to it. You know, Lucky Luke is a French cartoon character. It goes back, I think, to the 40s. And they've just done, I think it's called The Man Who Shot Lucky Luke, came out a few years ago. And it's Mathieu Bonhomme did it, and it's far more, less of this sort of quirky comedy that the original was in more of a Western, like a real Western film kind of an approach. And yet it maintained the essence and the style of the long-running character. A man so fast with a gun, he can shoot faster than his shadow can keep up. Fantastic idea. So I'm just drawing in this pile of wreckage with under Lucy's supervision. Please stop smacking things off the desk. Lucy is our new member of the family after my cat baby passed last year. Corbin was lonely, so she's adopted him as her dad. It's really cute. Okay, so I'm trying to put in little elements here to make this pile. No, so the next pile in the background, whereas this has some marks and some definition to it, the next thing that I put in behind this is really just going to be a geometric mass, like an outline, to sort of help make some sense of things. And then here in the foreground, okay, I'm going to put a really rigid line, like so, and to try to separate this from the area behind it. So this is a thicker line in this space here. And there'll be more shadow and such in here. And then we'll just keep putting in some really loose details in this area in behind. And yeah, so we're getting there. We're starting to move across the composition. Yeah, I'm curious as to why anybody here goes about creatively expressing themselves in the way that they do and what their motivation is, what they might feel compelled to, why they do that. Is it boredom? Is it, well, I'm bored and I ain't one for watching the TV? Is it, I only like canoeing, and when I don't have a canoe handy, I might as well draw something? And any other random nonsensical idea I can come up with on a drop of a dime. So not clearly defined, all of these things that are in our background, but we know that they're piles of stuff. Oh, Cat says, welcome, Lucy. You sound adorable. She's very squeaky. She's developed into quite the little character. She walks up to Corbin and headbutts him until he starts cleaning her ears. It's very funny. And she yells at him if he doesn't. Like, she just starts squeaking and carrying on. Okay, so here's where, and I'm going to just put some more deeper marks here in our foreground area. just thinking about different shapes. What can I fit in there? It looks like something without having to be overly defined as something. Right? Guess he agrees. So this is pretty handy. It's working out pretty well, this pen, and it's got a lot of guts to it. So it lets us do some different things. I am pleasantly surprised. Now, there's a much looser line here than you see some of the other things that I do. But at the same time, it's forcing me to really think and apply myself as I go along. And that's not a bad thing. So this is the one type of Tombow pen. This is the one that I always sing the praises of, which is substantially smaller, and but the Fedenosuke line is very, very giving. I really, really enjoy Tombow as a company, the material that they do. When was the first time you publicly showed your art? I was in a year-end show in grade 10. And I took on an audacious project for a grade 10 class of doing a 4-foot by 8-foot mural. And so, people went, oh, that's a large thing. And the following year I was accepted into the Beal Art program at the high school I was at. It was a technical school and with a really advanced art program. And so I went there, and by grade 12, I had a show in a gallery. And now I've done, I don't know how many. I've been in solo shows and exhibitions. I don't know how many I've done. I crossed 40, 50 years ago. So oh my goodness, big yawn. Sorry, you guys can't see it. I apologize. Lucy just yawned her head 3 times the size of its normal shape. Okay, so we're moving our way across. Trying to catch up here. What do we got? The perspective on this is incredible. That's what strikes me most about sequential art is amazing perspective. Oh, that's cool. Yeah, it takes practice, to be able to identifiably make scenes, contextually understandable. It just, you develop it as you apply it a little bit more. But when you start putting context into images, when you start drawing scenes, then it helps the reader to understand more clearly where things are, what's going on, and that's really important, And the reason that I think it's really important is because the less thinking that they have to do, the better it is for you, because They just understand where things are taking place in your story right away. Can you hear me now? Okay. Just give me a sec. Sorry. All right. Am I back on? Hello? Yeah, Lucy knocked out my mic. Thanks, Liz. Yeah, Malcolm was being built like Steve Austin. Let's see. What does this say again? It says 10 hours a week, preferred 20 hours a week of doing art. That sounds grand. Yeah, everybody here, put your hands up for who has all that time. I think that anything that you give yourself the opportunity to apply yourself to in whatever way that you can, as long as you keep trying, over time it'll improve. And there's no fast-paced rubric for it. Honestly, you're not. How many hours in a week can people give up? And if that's what fits them, then that's what fits them. But it's not the same for everybody. Not by half. So there we've got even smaller people there coming up. So now, ideally, the eye makes us go here. Wiggly worm. Yeah, whatever time that you can figure out to be able to try to apply yourself, that's the time that you can. And that's, if you sit there and you block yourself, I have to do it this much time. I have to do it this much in this particular place with these particular things. You're going to make yourself upset. And largely because as soon as that falls apart, as soon as you're not spending X amount of hours, as soon as you're not spending, whatever defined improvement that has been laid out for you, then it's going to demoralize you, or it's going to make you feel like it's not, this isn't going fast enough, or this isn't working, or whatever. It's organic, and it takes the time that it takes. I've been drawing over 50 years. So there you go. Which is hard because I'm only 39. Yeah. So, could I always draw this, however many years ago? No. It takes the time it takes. And as soon as you can be okay with that, then you'll find that things are going forward. Things are starting to pick up, and you're starting to feel like, oh, I'm in a comfortable place where I'm, the ideas that I have that I want to depict, I'm figuring out ways to depict them. Are they perfect? No. But will they be a little closer to it the next time I do something similar? Maybe. Because you're learning things each time. But don't put your an expectation of time on you. The people that do that are being unfair. I hope that helps. Because we all don't have the same lives. We all don't have the same experiences. We don't have the same obligations and commitments. When I got into the stock game, the first thing I did was put $50,000 in this. Well, okay, you started with $50,000. Don't give other people advice on how to be, rich. You started with this degree of, accommodation that you could just invest like that. Here's how to get rich using my way. You started with money. Donald Trump should not be giving advice about real estate because Donald Trump started with $10 million. That's a lot of money, right? The same time, Malcolm Gladwell says if you can spend $1,000 at something, then you'll have some modicum of ability to do it. This is this one book he wrote. And there's truth to that. Are you perfect? No. But 10,000 hours at anything, you spend $10,000 operating on other people's mouths, you're going to be some kind of a dentist. Just saying. Does that mean you're a dentist? Well, I think there's all kinds of other things that get involved in that, including school, licensing, accreditation. But you've spent a lot of time doing the thing, so you have a degree of knowledge about it. You have a degree of understanding in it. Because it's all within reason. I love music. I really do. I listen to music every day, and despite that, listening to music every day, uh, I don't, you know, think I'm a musician. I don't. I have a bunch of instruments in the house here, and I can make noises come out of a bunch of them, but I still wouldn't say that I'm a musician. But I have fun. Try things out. Enjoy yourselves. So I'm trying to move this forward. So I've got this little lady being carried here, and moving her into the foreground. Lucy, you've got some explaining to do. This says I craft 40 hours a week. Doesn't feel like that to me, but I'm retired now. So, yeah, I do have the time. Well, there you go. Oh, there will be the new $1 million person, or Inspector Gadget, as he prefers. Yeah, he's going to have to get a talking dog. 40 hours a week in something you enjoy, you have some degree of proficiency at it. You know, you do, let's say you spend 40 hours a week making whisk brooms from straw and wood. You're going to have a proficiency at making that kind of broom than somebody else that gives it a go does, because you spent X amount of time doing it. Hopefully it's something you enjoy. Which brings us to our next topic, office jobs. There are people that enjoy clerical work. There are people that enjoy that. There are people that enjoy all kinds of things. People that have no problem being garbage men. There are people that have no problem being lawyers. There's all kinds of things that others find unsavory that someone else, feels unable to do, or feels enabled to do. Not unable, enabled. And it's of interest to them. There's a lot more free time that people have right now than we've had before, even in my lifetime. So people are trying different things. It's interesting to me. So hopefully this image still makes sense. The little lady that I'm drawing here is being carried. So that's what's going on in this image in the foreground here. So I'm just drawing her. I haven't actually got to draw the person that's carrying her, but there we go. And yeah. Oh, all kinds of excitement going on upstairs. What's Lucy doing? Well, I think we're getting to a place with this. I think that I'm just trying to put some more little details in our foreground. similar to how we have, I put an I-beam here, little step drops here. I'm just drawing some bits and bobs of things. Okay, well, I feel like we're almost halfway across this. That's a good place for now. We've been going for an hour and a half and having some fun conversation and be blathering on. Lots of interesting things people are putting forward. So yeah, I think what I'll do is I'll have this finished and I'll have this posted for tomorrow. What's amazing, you got a facial expression with a few lines. Well, it's practice. When did you know you could draw anything you wanted to? Is there something you still want to draw? It's challenging. Yeah. And Linda says that's a great way to live, Liz. There are all kinds of things that I find challenging to draw. And there are all kinds of things that I'm regularly challenging myself to learn how to draw. And so, in and of that, by practice, we're going to get better. And that goes for all of us. There's no, if you find somebody that says, well, I can draw whatever I choose to. Yeah. That doesn't help the next person. Practice. Just keep plugging away at different things. And try to, how do you draw a toaster? Draw a toaster, right? Sit down in front of a toaster and practice drawing a toaster. How do you draw a motorcycle? Same thing. How do you draw? The basic thing that I always tell people is 3 shapes: circle, square, triangle. Put those 3 shapes on a piece of paper, close your eyes, look around you, and then figure out all the things around you that you can make with circles, squares, and triangles and combinations therein. And you'd be surprised. So everything isn't, insurpassable. There is, you can develop abilities to draw different things over time. Animals, horses, things like that are challenging to people. Cars are challenging to some people, and yeah, it just takes practice. It just takes repetition and trying different stuff out. So give yourself the chance to do that. Give yourself a break. And just have fun, do your best. Okay, well, there we are so far. There's how our image is coming together now. There's a little focused now. So here's how our image is coming together now. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 people in there already. Wow. Okay. Thanks everybody for coming out. Oh, thank you very much, Linda. Linda says, thanks everyone for coming. Bye and thumbing out. Thanks very much, Linda. Okay, folks. I hope that this has been some interest to people. Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday, I stream at 12 noon EST right here. And on Wednesday nights at 8 o'clock, 8 p.m. EST. So whatever that is in your time zone. And yeah, feel free to come out. If you've got one-page story ideas you want to throw at me, please feel free to put them in the comments for any of the social media posts or videos, and I'll get around to them. Incorporate those in our lineup. We're also just taking random dice from the art dice container, throwing those out and drawing whatever those things describe for us. There's a whole bunch of different ways I'm coming at storytelling, just whatever off the top of my head or whatever I feel like drawing right now. So yeah, thanks everybody for coming and hang out. It's great to be back after my little hiatus here, and let's have some fun. But if you're working on stuff, I'd love to see what you're doing. So let us know. Feel free to share. All right, bye for now. I'll see you tomorrow, maybe, or whenever we see each other at before I forget, that's the thing I'm forgetting. This Monday coming up, Chris Clear will join me at the 12 o'clock stream. So tune in. All right, gang. Bye for now.